Okay, so it's been a while since I've recorded a video and put it on YouTube, but I was just talking with this amazing woman, and she and I were talking a bit about our journeys of awakening up until this point, and then our Zoom meeting got cut off. So I thought it would be a good opportunity just to talk about my journey, my early journey, and my own psychic awakening, which was not by any means a smooth journey. So, anyway, here goes. I was raised in a family who are quite religious, so the Anglican faith. Actually had a good experience in the church, but there came a time when I was sort of hearing things that perhaps didn't reflect exactly my own developing beliefs at the time. And at the same time, in my teen years, I was starting to experience things that didn't quite align with what I was being taught in church. So uh, I read a book by a psychic. The psychic's name was the amazing Valda, and she lived locally to me. And as I was reading this book, I actually had my first premonition. So as I was going to sleep, I felt this blow to my right side. And then a couple of days later, as I was driving home from university, I um, saw a bus coming up to a T intersection, and I knew at that point I just instinctively knew that this was it. This was what that blow was warning me about, and I was able to take action to prevent me being wiped out by this bus. And another driver behind me pulled up, and at the same time said, "How did you know?" And I just said, "I didn't know. I just reacted." Um, Time went on. I, as I said, went to uni, met lots of amazing people, really broadened my life view, ended up getting a job in Sydney. This was in a time when it was before social media, so I felt quite isolated. I was working for a company who, I don't know. They were a medium sized business. There was a lot of weird business decisions that were being made. That meant that people weren't being treated very well within the business. So you put this alongside a time where I was starting to seek out this psychic development that I was having. I bought some books on meditation. I didn't have, this is the early 2000s, so there weren't really any like spiritual coaches or advisors or anything. There was psychologists or no one. So I got these books and I read them and I started doing the meditations. And what I actually believed happened was kind of a Kundalini awakening, but it was the type of Kundalini awakening that happens when you go from like a level, a lower level of operating, and then you go up to a really high level of operating really quickly. And it kind of broke me. I Anxiety just started really ruling my life. I was getting intrusive thoughts. The numbness and tingling didn't come until later, but that was happening. And at the same time, I was attracting spirits that weren't respecting my boundaries. So there was a spirit called James who attached himself to me, and James didn't respect boundaries very well. And I think he was actually maybe trying to replace my partner at the time. There were some things that happened during meditations where he like boundaries simply weren't respected. I was kissed with without my consent. Yeah, there's just so I had to kind of be quite firm in my boundaries with this entity. And at the same time, I was also being visited by spirits who were dying. I lived near a hospital in Hornsby, near Sydney, and people were dying and weren't really sure where to go. And I think my like newly opened psychic ability was blinking like a beacon, and so spirits were attracted to that. And problem was, because I wasn't trained, I didn't have the correct grounding, and wasn't guided through my psychic development. I needed to I didn't know what I needed to do, actually. I just descended into anxiety and was diagnosed with anxiety. The relationship that I was in broke down, lost my job the same week, and I moved back to Newcastle. This was 2003. Not long after moving back to Newcastle, I started experiencing numbness and tingling in my body, and that went on for ages, like a year kind of thing. But things really came to a head when I met my now husband's parents. I was just super nervous meeting the parents, and I think my numbness and tingles manifested in a huge way during that time. But I also thought, you get these weird sensations in your body, you don't know what they are, and there's no answer. So doctors didn't know. They thought that maybe I had multiple sclerosis, which at the time the treatments for multiple sclerosis weren't available back then, like what they are today. Today, there are a lot more treatments available for multiple sclerosis. Just didn't know what it was, and that added to the anxiety. So this leads to when I met the Archangel Michael. So I was out of body. I was trying to sleep one night. Archangel Michael appeared next to my bed, and he said to me, "Sit up." So I sat up, and he said, "Put your feet flat on the floor." So I put my feet flat on the floor, and he said, "Put yourself down into your feet." So I did that. And then he said, "I want you to listen to me. There's nothing wrong with you." And then the rest of his message, he no longer spoke like into my brain and into my ears. It was a message that was channeled like directly into my heart. And I believe it was an unspoken message, because I think that he needed to maybe bypass my brain, because the anxiety and everything else just meant that if he'd verbally given me the message, maybe I would have trouble accepting it. So I don't know the actual content of what was communicated to me by the Archangel Michael, but I do know that I felt it as absolute truth. It was pure truth that was just poured into my heart. And I sat there. I don't know how long I sat there, but it was all within the same night. Could have been a long period of time, could have been a short period of time. But I kind of sat in this suspended state, just receiving this beautiful, pure truth. And then he said, "Do you understand?" And I said, "Yes." And then he said, "Now go to sleep." And to this day, best night's sleep of my life. So I woke up the next day and I could see auras. So that was something else entirely. So auras are like, sometimes people get, they call them auras with migraine. So when you get a visual disturbance, this is different. This is like, if you imagine like an infrared heat seeking, you see it sometimes on the news when you, that's the closest thing I can kind of describe it as, when you are seeing patterns that are kind of emanating off of a person. It's almost like heat coming off them, or I describe it as like a lava lamp. It's always moving around. It's never static, and it's never just one color. It's always a myriad of colors, shapes, patterns, all the rest of it. But this was confusing because I'd never experienced this before. I'd met the Archangel Michael the night before. I didn't know it was the Archangel Michael at the time. That's just been my conclusion. He never introduced himself, but I know within my heart that that's who it was. And previous to that, I'd had all these numbness and tinglings that I was still feeling. Now I had auras on top of it all. So that was great. But after this point, all of the tests that I was having for what was causing the numbness and tingling, where they had previously come back as kind of like inconclusive, we don't know what's going on, we recommend more tests, that kind of thing, stuff started coming back as clear. So I was cleared of everything. And I spoke to my GP and I said, I'm seeing auras. Is this a new neurological symptom? And he said, look, I don't believe in like the spirituality side of things, but my wife does, and that's good enough for me. And I knew, or I felt at the time, that was probably going to be the closest thing that I was going to get to like mainstream acceptance of this psychic awakening that I was having. So that was enough for me at the time. So now I'm left with numbness and tingling that was getting better and did slowly get better over time with the medical reassurance, and then I had like, I guess, the auras to contend with. So that was something else, and there was no book for that. Well, I couldn't find one at the time anyway. So I really had to just learn how to interpret and play with the auras in my own time. And it was about 2003, and then it was probably about 2010 by the time I started my first website, which was Aura Answers, that I felt comfortable enough to share the information that I'd learnt. So in talking with this woman that I was speaking with earlier today, one of the things that I said was that you know that you're working with the light and with good entities, and in alignment with what is good, because the spiritual realm respects boundaries. And by that I mean, so I spoke about James before, he did not respect boundaries, but he was not a being of light. And the lost spirits that weren't finding me, it was because, I was untethered, I was lost. So I was chaotic, so I was attracting chaotic energy. So when you're connected and you're doing what is right, the spiritual energy that you work with will also respect boundaries. I'll give you a couple of examples. One, he was my boyfriend at the time, but husband now. He learnt how to turn his aura white. So I would be, he could just tell, like when I was like looking at his aura, trying to scan it, trying to see what I could see. And he in his mind would just think, I don't want you to see this. And suddenly it'd all go white. And I'd just kind of think, whoa, the first time it happened, like, how did you do that? And he just said, I don't want you to see it. And then suddenly I couldn't see it. It was white. No more colors, no more shapes, no more patterns. He had complete control of that, complete ability. So I always tell people, I can't read what you want without your express permission. I'm now at the point where I don't see auras unless I'm really tuned in and really intentional with what I want to do. The second thing, so the second example of respecting boundaries, I used to, when I was at work, we do training sessions, and one of the things I really liked was when the speaker was at the front of the room, because they were in front of a whiteboard. It was a really good opportunity for me to be able to like just gaze at them and look at them and see their aura in quite an amount of detail without any kind of like interrupting backgrounds. So I'd sit there and I would like look at these speakers and presenters and trainers, and most of the time I could read their auras and I could tell what was going on. But there was this one guy one day and I could not read his aura. And I don't know how it came out, conversation at the end of the day, but he put in conversation that he's a Seventh Day Adventist Christian, and it wouldn't align with his beliefs. Like it wouldn't be in his best interest for me to be able to see his aura. So I wasn't able to see it. In that case, it wasn't just a white around him. I could see nothing. The third time it's happened was a friend of mine asked me to do a distance healing for her. So I tuned in to her, and suddenly there was a man that was there in front of her, so between me and her in my mind, and he was his little like he was very angry and very cross, and he did not want me there. And so I said to my friend, I'm really sorry, I can't read you. I explained to her what happened. She said, that's my grandfather. He didn't believe in these things. So she said, if you could try to like, I really want you to do this, and hopefully he respects my wishes. And you know what? The next day I went to tune in again and he was nowhere to be seen. He wasn't there anymore. So he listened to what she wanted and didn't get in the way of the reading anymore. So those are ways. I said to this person that I was speaking to earlier, when you're doing spiritual work, the overriding factor is that you feel safe. So what you're doing doesn't feel weird. It shouldn't feel like, you might feel some strange sensations. You might feel a little bit of out of body or whatever, but the overriding factor should be that you're feeling safe in this moment. And I also want to assure you that no matter what, you're here in this body. You will always return to this body while your contract on earth is here and valid and ongoing. And you will always be able to reconnect with the earth. And that should be enough, at least the first step, to get you regrounded after like a bad psychic awakening, or like a Kundalini awakening that has happened too fast, too quickly, and is causing you anxiety in that. So that's just the first little part of my story, and what brings me to this point of now being a coach and helping people with anxiety, and being able to channel meditations that help countless people, and this wonderful life that I lead, where I'm truly happy and truly connected and truly feel like I'm here doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Full disclosure, things aren't perfect. Things are never perfect. I still experience my own anxiety. I still experience my own imbalances. I still go through things because I'm still learning. I still have things that come up. I still have, anxiety symptoms, because I need to inquire and see what that's about, and heal and integrate it. So that journey never finishes, but I do feel a lot more confident and safe in who I am and what I'm here to do. So anyway, if you've listened long enough to this video, thank you for listening. Like I said, a little bit different to my usual videos, but I really wanted to jump on and just record this. So bye for now.